Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne, and this is episode 145. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit like, follow, or subscribe on the platform that you're listening to us on. You can also check out my work at the loudest.com on the planet, knac.com, for exclusive hard rock and heavy metal interviews, live show coverage, and more. My guest for this episode is prog rock musician NEAL MORSE. You may know Neil from his time in Spock's Beard, Transatlantic, Flying Colors, NEAL MORSE Band, DiVirgilio Morse Jennings. He's got his hands in a lot of projects. His latest solo offering is a prog rock musical based on the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis. It's called The Dreamer, Joseph Part 1. It came out on August 11th through Frontiers Music. It's the follow-up to his last prog rock musical, Jesus Christ the Exorcist, which came out in 2019 through Frontiers Music. In conjunction with the album's release is Neil's annual concert festival called, appropriately, Morsefest. It's taking place in the USA, in White House, Tennessee, and again in Europe, in Holland. If you couldn't make it out to Morsefest, they also have it available streaming. And here's NEAL MORSE himself to tell you more about his latest album, Morsefest, and a whole lot more. If I knew absolutely nothing about NEAL MORSE, how would you describe your music to me?
Maybe a little bit of everything, I guess. You know, there's classical elements, pop elements, rock elements, jazz elements, even, country or even bluegrass elements sometimes. There's choral music on Joseph Part 1. So it's for people that like a wide variety of music, I would think. And a lot of my albums tell a story, like Joseph Part 1, of course, is telling the story of Joseph. And so it's kind of theatrical and a lot of times telling a story. I've done a lot of concept albums and a lot of times the pieces are kind of long. So you have to be a bit patient, I think.
Well, let's talk about the latest album. It's called The Dreamer, Joseph Part 1. It comes out August 11th through Frontiers Music. It's the story of Joseph with the coat of many colors from the book of Genesis. A lot of people probably know the story, Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat. So why did you focus in on this story, and how is it different than those that know the Technicolor Dreamcoat version?
Well, I have to be honest. I've never heard the Technicolor Dreamcoat version. Sorry. I'm a fan of Weber in a lot of ways. I lived on Jesus Christ Superstar when I was a young man. Well, I think it's quite different. I didn't really reference anything else. The reason why I did it was partly because of Frontiers. Frontiers had been talking to me for quite some time about, hey, they shoot me an email every 3 months or something. Hey, when are we going to get a follow-up to Jesus Christ the Exorcist, which was kind of my Jesus Christ Superstar thing. And then when I had this lull after the touring in 2022. And it was kind of like the dust settles and you're like, okay, well, what now, Lord? What would be good now? And so I was kicking it around with my wife and I mentioned the thing about Frontiers, and she's not really that much of a music person, at least not like progressive music and stuff. But she cares about the people a lot. She's a people person. And so like, well, people seem to really like your storytelling albums, maybe something, something else from the Bible. We started just kicking around David, Joseph, of course, and some other things. I thought about doing one on Bonhoeffer or something. It didn't have to be biblical, but of course I always like the spiritual side of things. That's my focus in life. So of course it's my focus in my music as well. But yeah, Joseph just seemed like, oh wow, there's the dreamer thing, and there's it's such a great story. But I didn't really know if I was going to do that until I just started to write it. It's kind of like you test the waters. You put your toe in, and then I wrote a couple things last October. It would have been, and I thought it was pretty good. And then throughout that month, some more pieces came, and then I got enough pieces to the puzzle to think, okay, yeah, I'm going to pursue this.
Now, it's kind of customary when you release an album that you have to put out some singles. Is that difficult when it comes to a concept record because you're taking a piece of the story and presenting it in a singular form?
Yeah, totally. It is hard, especially an album like this that is like a almost like a musical. It's got a cast, you uh, got other singers, so there's a lot of songs that I didn't sing on, and so to release a Neil Morse single, right? And then, well, it's like, well, and then Like a Wall was so short. Frontiers really wanted Like a Wall, and I was like, oh, it's a little short. So I did this edit of the overture to sort of tack on the beginning, and that seemed to work. And it seemed to get a good reaction. So I was very happy about that. But yeah, choosing singles is always a challenge.
Assembling the cast probably wasn't too much of a challenge. You went to a lot of musical friends and personal friends, looking at the list of people involved. Probably take us the whole interview to name everyone, but obviously there was certain people you wanted to deal with that could make this come alive.
Yeah, and I started writing for their voices because Matt Smith and Ted Leonard and pretty much everybody that I had guests on the album and as part of the cast uh, sing much higher than I do. My vocal limitations are pretty well known. I top out at about a F sharp G on a really good day, and and so I started writing, some very intense rock vocals for these guys. And I did the same thing on Jesus Christ the Exorcist. That's one thing that I really enjoy about writing for other people's voices is I can break out of the limitations of my own.
One of my favorite tracks from the album is the prologue, Before the World Was. It's a very good song. I think it's worthy of a single. It's sort of that story of God loving us before we were still there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that came to me on a ship. We had taken one of our grandsons on a short cruise. We try to take each one on a vacation, just us, and it's a really nice, special time. But I get up earlier than most people, and so I was up really early on the cruise ship and took my keyboard up to the whatever they call that adult area. I forget what it's called. Anyway, I just sat down with the keyboard and started playing around with some things, and some of the themes I think from the album were developed right there in that lounge on the ship. And then I just started singing. Sometimes you just start singing things. I started playing that dong dong ding 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 ding. I thought, oh, that's nice. Had sort of a Peter Gabriel feeling to me. Uh, and I just started singing over it. I just went, "You meant the world to me before the world was." I was like, "Before the world was." Wow, that's pretty cool. And then so the whole song, of course, sprang from that. At first, it just came out of my mouth. It's just like amazing, actually. I mean, I didn't even think about it.
You mentioned Frontiers being behind these concept albums that you put together, Jesus Christ the Exorcist and Joseph here. How did you first end up signing with the label?
Well, the guy that called me up, this is really funny. I haven't talked to him for a while. I need to talk to him again. Uh, like New York uh, music business guy, but that's how I think of him. East Coast music business guy named Michael Kaplan, and he was the guy that called me up initially. Oh, just to share a funny thing about him. The first time I talked to him on the phone, he got his number from a mutual friend, and it was right after I released Testimony. And he said, uh, "Neil, I got to tell you that your new album, Testimony, is my favorite album. It's number one on my playlist. I just have one question. I'm Jewish. Am I going to hell?" That was a really great phone call. I was like, wow, okay, let's talk. Anyway, and then some years later, in 2008, I think he called me up and said, "Hey, man, uh, he was listening to Jesus Christ Superstar with some friends, and they had said they were like people were saying somebody should do a new kind of thing like this, And he was like, I got the guy. So he called me up and I prayed about it and felt like I should do it. So I wrote the first draft of that in 2008. And then he shopped it around, Michael Kaplan did, for quite some time to Broadway producers and labels and got nothing. And then in 2018, he called me and said, "You're not going to believe this. I think I got a deal for this record." And it was with Frontiers, which was amazing. You know, it's a kind of a Joseph story all in itself. Like, why is this happening? Like, why did you give me the inspiration to write this thing and then not do anything with it? I mean, 10 years went by. And people would ask me, "Hey, what about that thing that you did?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just waiting for the Lord to open a door." And when Michael Kaplan called me, it was right when I was starting a rewrite because I decided to do it at Morsefest that year, kind of out of the blue. I think Mike couldn't make it that year, so I was like, "What can I do?" And it was a real stepping out in faith, even doing that because nobody had heard it really. And anyway, it all just fell into place right then, and within a few months in 2018.
Frontiers is releasing the album digitally, CD. They got their vinyl. You have your own vinyl through your own imprint, Radiant Records as well.
Oh well, I buy the vinyl from them. They're the label, so yeah, I just get it wholesale from them and sell it on my website. Yeah.
Are you a big vinyl fan yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. The only problem is I need to build a room or something. You know, my wife doesn't want to listen to the same music as me or and doesn't want to listen to it as loud as I do. You know what I mean? So the turntable's in the living room. So I just don't get to listen to records that often. Sometimes she's gone, but not very often. She's there. We're there together most of the time. So, but yeah, I do enjoy vinyl very much.
Getting to Radiant Records, that's pretty much the home to your entire catalog and more. You have your own streaming service called Waterfall. So this is a very fan friendly label, I would say.
Yeah, Radiant at one time, Radiant had distribution through Sony, through Metal Blade, actually. And then, kind of as the music business began to shrink some, then things began to change. They called me up and said, we really aren't making enough money on this to make it worthwhile. Metal Blade was kind of the intermediary between Radiant and Sony, and so they basically we stopped having distribution. But we have a wonderful fan base, and now we're pretty much just selling things on our website. And I don't know where the music business is at now, anyway. But Waterfall's great. So I have my own streaming app that you can get through like the Apple Store and whatever. It's called Waterfall, and it has everything and more of mine and everyone kind of associated with me, really. All my different bands, Transatlantic, Flying Colors, Neal Morse Band, Spock's Beard, all of that stuff, as well as all my solo stuff and lots of obscure demos and things that aren't anywhere else. And yeah, it's great.
Between Jesus Christ the Exorcist and Joseph, you did sort of a one-off for Inside Out music, Sola Gratia. It's a little weird that you had another label in between a label that you're working for. That and Inside Out, I know was your longtime label for years.
Well, it's kind of like I'm not signed to anyone. It's like I license these albums. We do deals basically kind of per album. Frontiers wanted a rock opera. They were very specific. We want multiple singers and um, all of these things. Each deal I just kind of make a new thing, like call up Thomas from Inside Out and say, hey, I'm inspired to do this. What do you think about it? Would you be interested in it? And, or contact the Frontiers guys. And it's great because I've got total, complete artistic freedom and support as well. So I don't know who could ask for anything more as an artist, really.
You're gearing up for this big show you got. It's your annual Morsefest. This one's 2023 in the USA and in Europe. The one in the USA is at the New Life Fellowship, and White House, Tennessee, August 11th and 12th. This is an in-person event and a streaming event. You're going to be playing two of your landmark albums, Testimony 1 and 2, plus other surprises, correct?
That's right. Yeah, we're doing Testimony 1 and 2, and I was going to be practicing out here. Look at my keyboard stand. I finally got everything all set up. I'm right by the lake, and I'm like, man, what a great place to practice and work. And it was really nice this morning. And then my dog chewed through her thing, and I had to like strike it all and go drive. And anyway, Chloe, the things we do for love. Anyway, yeah, I'm getting ready for that. It's great.
It's actually the 20th anniversary of Testimony 1. This was
Yeah,
your first concept album about your life and conversion to Christianity, right?
yeah, yeah. It's my testimony, my personal story, uh, set to like, lots and lots of music. I'm really excited about it. I've been listening to it. You know, that's that's what's on my plate.
A lot of differences between 20 years ago and today, I think, in the world around us when it comes to Christianity. It seems like Christianity's under attack these days. And, how do you kind of see the world as it relates to Christianity today?
I don't know. I don't get out that much. Um, in my own personal experience, it seems like the Lord's pouring out His Spirit consistently as He has. I'm encouraged by some of the things that I've seen happening locally here in Nashville at some of the um, local churches. Um, I've never been one to really identify that much with like the big Christian church movements. That's not really ever been my thing. Um, I'm more interested in, I guess you might say, personal discipleship and helping disciple others. As far as the kind of the trends and the big picture of like the United States and things like that. Um, I would just say I don't really know about that. I'm just My desire is just to do the will of God to the best of my abilities today and with the plans that I'm making. I'm really excited to be giving my testimony not only here and on the live stream, but also in Europe. I feel like it's going to be really good.
Is this your first time bringing Morsefest to Europe?
It is. It is. Yes, I played there a lot, and I've done a lot of activities there. Church events and all kinds of things. But we've never actually had a Morse Fest over there. So yeah, I'm excited.
And you're actually going to have a bigger production with more musicians and stuff like that over in Europe?
Yeah, but strings and horns and background singers and percussion and
You tape these Morse Fests for future release? Yes?
yeah, they'll be filmed and recorded. Yeah, yeah. Um, it seems like people that are into it, they'll come and they'll live stream it and they'll buy it. It's like it doesn't seem like anything precludes anything else, which is awesome. It's really great to have that kind of support. And what we have is it's a very small but extremely dedicated fan base.
Are you going to be touring or playing more live performances after Morsefest?
No, no plans to actually. I'm planning to take some time off in the fall. I've been writing and producing and been taking in a lot of activity, a lot of records. There's a new record for the trio coming out. There's a Joseph Part Two that is just being completed like today. Um, all these things are just mountains, particularly the Joseph albums were just mountains of work from start to finish. It's just the trio albums are simpler albums, so and the other guys do a lot of the work. But with the Joseph albums, I'm the author and the finisher. So it's like even this morning, I'm like looking at ID points and approving mixes, and so I'm not complaining. It's just I think I'm going to take some time off.
And we can expect the sequel to Joseph to be out in 2024?
Yes, yeah, it's being completed like literally today. Like the engineers finalizing everything, and I said approved last night. So yeah, artwork, everything.
And when you say you're working with the trio, you're going to be a little more specific. You've been in a few trios, from what I understand. Are you talking about D. Virgilio, Morse, and Jennings?
Yes, yes. There's a record in the can for that's coming out, I think, in October. And then there's also going to be Morsefest 22 with Transatlantic, with Whirlwind and Absolute Universe. That'll be coming out, I think, early next year. I think.
Are you doing anything more with Flying Colors?
Not currently, um, but you never know. When I say I'm taking the fall off, that's my thoughts. Things opened up, and like Flying Colors contacted me and said, "Hey, man, you want to get together and write?" I'd be like, "Yeah." I've also written this musical called God Smuggler, based on the God Smuggler book. If you may have heard of that. It was a bestseller some years ago. Anyway, there's a theater in Houston that is putting it on. I signed the contract, and that's going to be happening. So I'll be working on that too. So I think I'm taking time off, but who knows? Only the Lord knows, right?
Have you ever thought about or started to develop taking one of your concept albums and turning that into a stage show?
Yes. Well, and other people have thought about that a lot too. Yeah, people have done it. Like there's a group of people that put Sola Scriptura, I think, on the stage. I think people have taken Jesus Christ the Exorcist and put it on the stage. I think it's all I can do, to quote Testimony. It's all I can do to kind of write these things at this point. There would have to be some other impetus, some other catalyst, I think, to take some of these things to a different place. But I'd be definitely open to it.
Well, those are all the questions I have for you today, Neil. The new album, The Dreamer, Joseph Part 1, comes out August 11th through Frontiers Music. Great album. I had a great time talking to you to learn more about the album and about you, and I wish you the best of luck with everything.
Well, thank you so much, man. Good talking with you.
Once again, I want to thank Neal Morse for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out his latest album, The Dreamer, Joseph Part 1, out now on Frontiers Music. Head over to your favorite music streaming platform. Take a listen to the album. If you like what you hear, buy a copy. Support the artist. For all things Neal Morse, head over to his official website, nealmorse.com. While you're there, you can sign up for Neal's exclusive streaming service, Waterfall, where you can get his entire back catalog, plus rarities you can't get anywhere else. I also want to thank John Freeman of Freeman Promotions and Frontiers Music for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. Discover your next favorite artist on the Rock is George podcast.